Have you ever been stuck? I mean, trapped in a situation where you genuinely had no way out. Like, I'm stuck in this room right now, and there are doors all over the place. But the problem is, none of the doors work. So I'm kind of just trapped here. You know, being trapped is a really scary feeling. You know, I've felt trapped before, too. Like one time, some friends of mine, we took a golf cart just out on the normal road with cars and speed limits. And it was really funny and kind of fun at first. But then about 30 seconds into it, we're having to go up a hill, and now we're going like 8, 9 miles per hour, and cars are flying by us every direction. And it was terrifying. I mean, I was trapped. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't jump out of the car because I'll be right in oncoming traffic. I was just stuck. We had to see this decision through the end. Now, being trapped is legitimate fear. A lot of people have that fear. And most people aren't trapped in their situation because of choices they made, like I did with the golf cart. Sometimes they're trapped in a situation, kind of like I am now, because you made a few wrong turns and went the wrong direction, and now just on accident, you're kind of stuck where you're at. Okay, so the Bible is full of stories about people that were trapped in these dire situations where it looked like they had no way out at all. And the story we're going to talk about today is a story about these 3 guys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they found themselves in a horrible situation where they were totally trapped and stuck. Nowhere to go. Their best scenario probably would have been to run away, but they didn't. Well, here's a little bit of backstory before we start to read. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were actually kidnapped from their home, and their home, their city, their friends, man, it all got burnt to the ground. Like, their city was gone. It got ransacked by the Babylonians. And they took all these people prisoner, and some of their family members may have gotten taken prisoner too. So these guys are in an awful situation because they get taken by the king, and they're forced to learn the Babylonian culture because he sees leadership in them and wants to use their gifts for his gain. Now this king, Nebuchadnezzar, man, he is messed up. See, this point in the story where we're at right now, he has a golden statue of himself set up. And he creates a law that says everybody has to bow down and worship me in front of that statue. Now Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I mean, God gave them a great position of privilege because they were faithful through all of it, through kidnapping, lost their family, lost their home. Man, they didn't swerve. They stayed with God. And they were tight, and God blessed them with some positions of authority in Babylon. But they refused to bow down and worship the golden statue of King Nebuchadnezzar. And that's where our story picks up. Daniel chapter 3, verses 14 through 18. Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you refuse to serve my gods or to worship the gold statue I've set up? I will give you one more chance to bow down and worship the statue I've made when you hear the sound of the musical instruments. But if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And then what God will be able to rescue you from my power?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up." The situation they're in is a mess. The king of Babylon, the most powerful person in the world that they know, is threatening them to be thrown into a furnace if they don't bow down and worship him with everybody else. Now, they had a choice to make, a really hard choice. I mean, they were trapped. They could either bow down and worship the statue, and even if they don't mean it or don't want to, they can still do that and repent later maybe. But man, their character and their integrity was too important to them, and their love for God was too big a deal. So they responded to him and said, "You know what? That's fine. You can throw us in a furnace because no matter what happens, our God's able to rescue us. And even if he doesn't, we still won't worship you. I mean, the audacity of that claim is unbelievable. The amount of courage that takes is just outrageous. See, these three guys, man, they were in a situation where they were totally stuck. And it wasn't their fault. They didn't make wrong turns to get there. They were actually faithful to what they believed. And that got them in a bad scenario. See, courage takes this inner resolve, right, to resist external pressure. And everyone around them was worshiping the wrong thing, but they chose to still worship God. And they were about to suffer the consequences of it. And as far as they were concerned, they were probably in certain doom. Like, there's no way we can get out of this. But they trusted God and saw it through. Now, we read these stories, and sometimes we forget these were real people in real situations. Like, I read this story, and I've read it 100 times, and it never dawns on me that, oh man, they were probably horrified. Like, they were courageous on the inside, and it was showing on the outside, but I bet there was still a lot of fear of getting thrown into a furnace. But their story ends with God rescuing them, God meeting them in the furnace, in the punishment, and showing them a way out. See, they had to win the battle within them before they can set God up to do the miraculous thing and win a battle outside of them. Because what happens is they got taken up out of the furnace, and that changed the course of the nation. And it all started before they were in the situation. They made the decision, I'm going to worship God no matter what the consequence. So when they actually came to that situation or scenario where they were faced with opposition about their faith, they were able to stand firm and be confident and have courage and say, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to follow. And it was all because they won a battle inside of them. See, I think the greatest battles we'll ever fight, more often than not, they'll happen within us more than they will outside of us. What unknown in your life are you running from that God is asking you to run towards? See, courage is not the absence of fear. Fear is a very real thing, whether it's unknown or an actual fear that's right in front of you. But courage doesn't mean fear isn't around. Courage just means you have the resolve to confront it and face it. And you can't do that if you're constantly running away from unknown situations and places that God's calling you to go. See, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, it would have been so easy for them just to bolt and take off and escape into the desert. But they didn't. They saw it through to the end. See, courage was that inner resolve in them to face the conflict that was standing before them. And it wasn't easy. I mean, it wasn't easy by any stretch of the imagination. But in any scenario where any of us are trapped or stuck in a situation that we just don't have a way out of, and those are never easy. But the good news, even though life and situations like that, they don't get easier, but you can still get stronger. See, when it comes to things that we're facing in the unknown, man, they don't ever get any easier, but you have the opportunity to get stronger. And courage gives us those opportunities, those moments of courage to lean in and face it. So what are you running from? Because remember, when it comes to the unknown, you can't erase it. You have to face it.